Jamey from Stonemeyer Games, and I'm happy to be here. Happy with a little bit of a headache today, but happy to be here with you to share the next 50 or so minutes. I might cut it off a little bit early today because right after this, I'm going to kind of remind my team how to play expeditions because several members of my team, in fact, pretty much everybody, most members of my team, Susanna, Dave, Joe, and Alex are all going to Gamma next week for at least a few days. And one of the things they'll be doing there is sharing expeditions with distributors and retailers. And so I'm going to refresh their memory on how to play, and then I'm going to hand off my copy of Expeditions over to Alex and Dave and Susanna so they can take it with them. So for a few weeks, I won't have a copy of Expeditions. So I filmed a few videos yesterday that will fill in the gaps over the next few weeks. And then in 2 weeks, so it's really not that long, in 2 weeks, I will get the MPC from Panda. So this is kind of the first copy off the print run, the first real copy, I guess, off the print run. Previously, I've had the PPC, which looks like the real copy, but isn't actually. It just is made to look like the real copy. And I'll review that before saying, hey, go ahead and assemble everything. So they've already like printed everything. The glue is drying right now on punch boards and things like that. And Panda is getting ready to assemble the games in a few weeks. So I'm excited about that. I did a video last week about expeditions that focused on, what did last week's video focus on? Last week's tapestry video focused on end of the game. And then I filmed two videos yesterday, one about item cards and upgrading and one about meteorites and melding. So you'll see those videos come out. I've been doing every other week, so that's the pattern I think I'll follow. Good morning, George, Tom, John, Rick. Thanks for joining me today. Tom says, I was thinking it's Tuesday, thrown off by having a day off on Monday for Easter. Yeah, it doesn't feel entirely like a Wednesday, but I'm pretty sure it's Wednesday, 4/12. Yeah, I think it's a Wednesday today. So yeah, I'm here as usual on Wednesday. So yeah, I'm playing Expeditions today. I recently, just yesterday, I replayed played Earth again, and I got crushed the first time I played Earth, but still had a blast. And yesterday, I helped teach it. Two of us were teaching the game, and I crushed everyone. I did really, really well in yesterday's game of Earth. Earth so far, I think, is my game of the year. I'm really, really enjoying my plays of Earth so far, and I look forward to getting to the table some more. I'm also looking forward to playing the new copy of Ra tonight at my game night. I also played Endless Winter at game night last week. That was a release from 2022, last year. And I played Dog Park a couple of days ago with some friends and had a blast with that as well. I've played Dog Park many times at this point, but I really do enjoy Dog Park. It was my first time playing Endless Winter. Tom says, did I see the Wrexham game? Yeah, Wrexham, one of the teams that I root for in the, not English Premier League, but the greater English leagues of soccer. They're a fifth tier team that I root for, and I didn't see it, Tom. I didn't have a way to watch it live. I couldn't find a way to watch it live, but I did watch the highlights afterward. It was an incredible game against the team that they were tied with for first place, Notts County, and they just barely won. Like there was a penalty kick in the final seconds of the game that the Wrexham keeper saved. Ben Foster saved a penalty kick, which doesn't happen all that often. It was an extremely dramatic way to end the game. Tom, did you see it or did you see the highlights? It was a really exciting finish. George says, you had a great, memorable meal, I see. Glad you've enjoyed such culinary experiences. Yes, George, I'm glad you mentioned that. I had a really special meal with Megan and two friends at a restaurant called Bull Rush in St. Louis over the past weekend. It's a restaurant I've heard great things about, but I've never been to. And they focus on local and Ozark ingredients. In fact, only local and Ozark ingredients, which is a Missouri area of Missouri. And they focus on things that have been available in this region historically. So not just now, but also historically as well. And it's one of those experiences where you sit around where the chefs, including the head chef and owner, prepares the meal. So he's like in the middle of this bar that kind of goes around the restaurant. You were at the bar and he's in the middle cooking with his team. And he and his team are presenting the dishes to us as we eat. So it's very fine dining, not the way that I usually eat meals at all. But it was a really special experience and I really, really enjoyed it. And it's the type of place that has seasonal menus, which is a topic that's been on my mind a little bit. And in fact, that's one of the topics I wanted to ask you all about. Is there a corollary between seasonal menus at restaurants, particularly maybe fancy restaurants, and the tabletop gaming space? And I mention this because now that I've tried Bull Rush, it's definitely a place that I can't go every week. It's very expensive. I can't go every week at all. But I would like to go back seasonally because I've had their spring menu now, and it makes me really curious about what the summer menu is. And I'm wondering if there is a comparison to tabletop games, a reason to come back to play, play something now or check in with the company now, and then come back for their seasonal release next season. I know that some video games do this. I'm not really into the world of video games, so I don't know if that's something that gamers enjoy or they don't enjoy. But I've heard that there's a game, or I know there's a game called Path of Exile, I think. Path of Exile, I think, does seasonal drops or seasonal specials. I think even Marvel Snap has different seasons where they have a special thing during that season. So I'm wondering if there's a comparison to tabletop games, and I'm curious what you think about that. Nathan's joining us today. I have a few other questions of the day for you as well, but I'll lead off with that one to see what your thoughts are about that. In fact, I'll make a note about Marvel Snap. I had forgotten about that while thinking about this topic. Let's see. Oh, Megan just whispered that World of Warcraft does that as well. I'll have to ask her about that. World of Warcraft and Marvel Snap. So I'm guessing like maybe this is something that is very prevalent in video games. Do you know any examples from tabletop games that do this? David says, have I tried out Arc Nova on Board Game Arena? It's currently in alpha, but it's a very polished version. I don't have access to the alpha version that I know of, David, so I haven't tried it yet, but I do love Arc Nova on the tabletop, and I would love for it to be on, I'm glad that it's on Board Game Arena as well, so I can play there during my virtual game nights. So that's good to know. Tony is here today. Tom says, interesting question about seasonality. I don't know if there's a correlation, but I always have games that I only play at Christmas when I have a bit more time off and they take a bit longer. And I could also see that for games that are played during certain holidays, like spooky games near Halloween or nature-themed games in the spring or games that you maybe think of because it's a certain time of year. Jackie is joining live for the first time. Yeah, that's awesome, Jackie. Thank you for popping in live. Glad to have you. And Casimir says, what are the stories behind your cat's names? And which one is keeping an eye on you in the back there? Oh, that is Biddy in the back right now. Biddy is my 16-year-old little boy that I adopted, rescued as a kitten when he was very young from the local Humane Society. And Biddy's name at the time, his kind of a name on his birth certificate is Baby Bok Choy. That's the name that we gave him at the time, Baby Bok Choy. And then the girlfriend I was with at the time had a habit of renaming Biddy, kept giving him nicknames. So it went from Baby Bok Joy to Bitten Kitten to Bitten Boy to Biddy Boy to Biddy. And the name Biddy stuck at that point. So it evolved into this name Biddy. And then I adopted Walter a few years later. I think Walter's around 12 years old at this point. I think I had Biddy for around 4, maybe 5 years at that point when I adopted Walter as a friend for Biddy, because Biddy is very social. And I basically just wanted a name that didn't sound like Biddy. So when I called to Biddy, Walter didn't come running, or when I called to Walter, Biddy didn't come running. Of course, as it turns out, Walter never comes running when you call his name. Biddy will come running if you call his name and you sound really excited and he thinks he's getting food out of it. Let's see, he'll look up if he knows his name. Hey, Biddy, you look at the camera? Hey, Biddy? Of course, he's not doing it now. Hey, Biddy? No, he kind of looked over here. Ray's answering my question about seasonality, if there's a comparison between seasonal menus at restaurants or video games and tabletop games. He says, I'm not sure if any games are specifically set up that way, but there are certainly games that me and his wife, Ray and his wife, feel like playing at certain times of the year when we have time, like Betrayal at House on the Hill around Halloween. That makes sense. And Casimir pointed out that I said Walter, and Walter came back in here. That's true. Walter never comes when I say his name, but in this case, he did, and Biddy didn't listen to me. What else is going on? Beautiful weather in St. Louis right now. Amazing weather over the weekend. And right now, we played disc golf on a beautiful day. We went to the farmer's market on a beautiful day. The farmer's market in Tower Grove reopened in St. Louis this past weekend after having only winter markets. And it was packed. It was awesome to see the support for these local businesses that come to the farmer's market. Local farmers and also local businesses like Whisk, one of my favorite little bakeries here in St. Louis. Poptimism is whisk and Poptimism. They make delicious popsicles as well. I went to Crooked Door Bakery. I went to Cacao. Lots of treats. I found a new lettuce place. Yeah, really, if you're ever in St. Louis on a Saturday, I highly recommend the Tower Grove Farmers Market, especially in the morning if you can go early. They open at 8, and it was pretty packed by 9 when we were there. What else have I been talking about or playing? I had a great chat with Elizabeth Hargrave, designer of Wingspan. We kind of did a retrospective chat about Wingspan so far and for my game design channel. So we're kind of focused the discussion towards game designers. That will go live on my YouTube channel sometime in April, I think. I don't know exactly when, one of these Sundays. And my video, I also filmed a video yesterday about branching paths in games, which is a topic that we discussed on last week's livecast. So thank you for all the input you gave there. A lot of that ended up in the video. The video from this past weekend, what were my posts about this past weekend? I did a blog post about, what is your most important challenge? So I shared a book that I've been into recently called When Everyone Leads. And it asks some great questions in the book, including kind of what is your gap between your greatest concern, whether it's personal, professional, whatever that may be, and your greatest aspiration, and why is there a gap between those two? And I also did kind of a very bittersweet post on last Thursday about Klaus Tuber, the creator of Settlers of Catan, and the huge impact that he's had on me. We talked about that last week during the livecast a little bit as well. But really, Catan, I don't think Stonemaier Games would exist, or definitely would not exist 10 years into the company at this point, were it not for Klaus's impact on Catan. And kind of, I expressed in the post a lot of regret that I never reached out to him and said thank you for creating such an amazing game that has had such a profound impact on my career. It was a good reminder to me that I needed to reach out to others. And so I actually did reach out to a major designer after that and just dropped in a little note and said, thank you. Thank you for what you've created. You've had a big impact on me. And the designer was very kind to respond. Just a good reminder that people are more accessible than I think. And if someone's had a big impact on me, I want to reach out to them and let them know so that it's not too late when I realize how grateful I am for that person. Also did a video this past weekend. What was my video this past weekend? On Sunday. Okay. Oh yeah, I had a great conversation with Sam McDavitt recently, an up-and-coming content creator and someone who's trying to design a game. And Sam reached out to me and said, "Hey, could we have a chat on your channel about game design?" He said, "I have some questions for you, and you can ask me some questions." And we kind of went back and forth and had a great discussion. And I posted that video this past Sunday if you want to check that out. Let's see. I'll back up to some questions here. Nathan says that he hit 100 degrees Fahrenheit yesterday. Much better weather in St. Louis right now. I'm sorry that it's already so hot for you, Nathan. Where are you located? Zach says, have you and Elizabeth talked much about the future of Wingspan as well and possible ideas for expansions and promos? Well, we did talk about what's coming up for Wingspan, which is the vision-friendly card pack. That's coming up probably at the end of May, early June. And we talked about the fan art pack that should be coming out later this year or early next year. And so we talked about those. And Elizabeth is also starting to play around with some ideas for the next expansion. We didn't talk about it much in the call. I found that I don't want to. Elizabeth has a lot of games that she's working on. Wingspan is just one of those games. So I have learned that I want to make sure she doesn't feel pressured or rushed to design the next thing. When she's ready, she'll design it. She's an amazing designer. And so I guess, Zach, this is a long way of saying that I am here for her when she wants to discuss it. We have discussed it a little bit, but when she's ready to kind of dive deep into it, that's probably when we'll have a more detailed chat about it. Miles also asked, am I enjoying the new Brandon Sanderson book, or did I finish it? He says he's about 60% done and he's really enjoying it. I'm about 70% done, Miles, so I'm a little bit ahead of you, but not by much, and I am really enjoying it. And I'm actually hoping to finish it in the next couple of days because a new book from Fonda Lee, the author of the the Green Bone saga, like Jade City, Jade War, she has a new book, a new series called Untethered Sky that just released, I think at midnight last night or yesterday, and I'm super excited about this book because it's in a fantasy world with giant birds, and for some reason, other than my connection to Wingspan, I love fantasy with giant birds. I really, really love that. One of my favorite things about Lord of the Rings, even though the bird, we don't spend much time with the birds. So Untethered Sky by Fonda Lee, it's going to be awesome. Fonda Lee is an incredible author, and I'm really excited about the book. And she's actually coming to St. Louis next week. She's doing a reading for the book in St. Louis and St. Charles, actually just outside St. Louis, next Thursday. So I'm really excited to start reading that book too. Dusty says that he's looking forward to the retrospective chat with Elizabeth. And he says, I'm sure it was a fun conversation. It really was. I have so much respect for Elizabeth. And it's been amazing to see her, what she's done with Wingspan, but also what she's done with Tussie Mussy and Mariposas. And I'm excited about the Fox experiment. I'm excited about her mushroom themed game. Undergrove, I think is what she's calling that one. Yeah. Dusty said, do you think the title could reach 2 million in sales this year, Wingspan? I don't know. It'll probably be pretty close. I think it's possible. Possible to have 2 million in circulation by the end of this year. I don't know if we'll quite get there, but I think it'll be pretty close. We'll see. Yeah, I think part of it depends on how many copies we end up making for the holiday season, a print run that we will start in the very near future. Casimir says, when do we get a Scythe Wingspan crossover, the mechanized birds of Eastern Europa? Well, there is a bird inside, so I think the crossover is a little bit already there. Zara and Kar. Kar? Zar. Zara and Kar. Yeah, Kar is the bird. So there is a bird inside. I guess there isn't a Scythe element in Wingspan. But yeah, there's a bird inside. I think that counts. Corey from Blue Falcon chimed in to say, good morning. He's spending his morning pulling his hair due to government IT support. Ooh, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope that works out for you, Corey. I had one other question of the day for you all. What was the other question of the day? Oh, yeah, let me mention this. So yesterday, I was looking for a specific component for an upcoming game that we have coming out. And I know I had received a sample of this component, and I couldn't find it in my cabinet of wonders back there, cabinet of secrets. And it turned out it had slipped through the cracks because this cabinet has become just piles of stuff is back there. It's a lot of like old components, sample components from old games and whatnot. And it was just a mess. And so I spent yesterday evening, or part of yesterday evening, with Megan's help as well, organizing that cabinet. And as a result, I pulled out a lot of stuff that I no longer need in it. So I wanted to put this out there to anyone who's listening to this. I have a lot of spare components from different games. So I have bags of like viticulture meeples and buildings. I have bags of tapestry buildings. I have some metal mechs. I have a drawer of metal mechs from Scythe that I don't need. I have a bunch of Wingspan components, a lot of eggs for the most part, but other Wingspan components. I have a huge box of Euphoria components. None of these comprise a complete game, but if you would value any of these, if you want any of these, if you would use any of these components, especially if you're maybe prototyping, I think they would be very good for prototyping. So I have Euphoria, Tapestry, Wingspan, Scythe. I think those are the four. I might have one other one as well. If you were interested in any of those components, for not to sell, this isn't for me to sell to you, it isn't for you to sell to someone else, this is for you to use in the classroom if you want, for your own prototyping, whatever you want. If you want to create a giant tapestry diorama with all the spare buildings that I have, let me know. I would love to send them to someone who can actually use them. Otherwise, they're probably just going in the trash. So let me know if you could use that stuff. My email address is jamey@stomeyergames.com, and let me know if there's a specific game that I mentioned there that you're interested in. I think I've covered all of them. I have them in these big bags. And I have a realistic resource bag too. Oh, I have a Between Two Cities one as well. Yeah, let me know. I have lots of random stuff here. This is one of 4 bags that are just full of these components. So jamey@stomeyergames.com. Please let me know if you have any use for these components, and I'm happy to send them out for free. I just want to send them to someone who will put them to good use. And if I don't get any interest, I will probably reach out directly to some classrooms that I know do some prototyping, and I could also reach out to some of the prototyping services that people pay to get their tokens, but I'd rather send this stuff out for free if I can. I also don't want to send out a dozen packages. I'm hoping to send out maybe 4 or 5 packages total. So let me know if you want a lot of stuff. I'd rather send you a lot of stuff in one package than send out many, many different smaller packages. Let's see. I got to scroll back a little bit here. Zach says, "Would you consider Klaus to be the Tiger Woods of the board game industry, making the industry more lucrative for future designers and visible to a larger audience for generations to come?" Zach, that is it. I think that's a good comparison for at least the Tiger Woods that we knew back before, some of the darker elements of his personality have come out in recent years. Not that he's, he had some personal issues in his personal life. However, I totally see what you're saying about Tiger Woods' impact on how a lot more people started paying attention to golf once Tiger Woods got into golf. So I think Klaus is a decent comparison in that way to Tiger Woods. Yeah. Mike says, "Saw pics of Susanna with Vital and others at your recent get-together. Sounds like it was amazing." Yeah, so I did. I think I talked about this last week or the week before. I had the great pleasure of having dinner in St. Louis with a bunch of designers that came through St. Louis on their way to the Gamers Ranch. And they stopped by a restaurant here in St. Louis, and we all had dinner together. So it was a few people from Queen Games, I believe. I hope I get that right. Maybe, and Eagle Griffin, Randall, Vitalis Sordo was there. Connor McGoey from Inside Up Games. And Connor actually came to my game night afterward and taught Earth to me, which is a pretty incredible way to learn Earth from someone who was so involved in the creation of that game and the publisher of that game. It was really special. Very lucky that they included me in that gathering. Ray says, "Was that .com at the end of your email address?" Yes, it's jamey@stonemeyergames.com. That email will get to me. And if you forget that, if you're not writing that down, you can just go to the contact form on our website and it will get through to me if you go there. Dusty says, "What would be kind of a cool video? Film a video of going into the Cabinet of Secrets, and then when it doesn't house any more secrets, share the video. It'd be a cool time capsule and an opportunity to see what could have been." Ooh, Dusty, that's interesting. I could probably do that. Yeah, I can't open that cabinet because there are things labeled in there of many things that we haven't released yet. But you're right. I could film a video now, and then well into the future when we've released all those things or they're no longer secrets. That would be cool, Dusty. I really like that idea. I'm going to make a note about that. Okay, time capsule video. Time capsule video of the Cabinet of Secrets. I like that a lot. Very clever. Very clever, Dusty. Tom says, "Americans seem to love a Hall of Fame. Do you think there should be a board game Hall of Fame? And if so, which designer and which game should be the first inductees?" That's a great question, Tom. I personally don't really care about like awards and Hall of Fames and things like that. That isn't a motivator for me, at least. Don't care isn't a good way to put it, but they aren't a motivator for me. However, talking to Elizabeth the other day, it was really interesting to talk to her because she is working on putting together a bunch of Wingspan, or has been working on putting together a bunch of Wingspan supplies for the Strong Museum, which is a museum that at least partially is about games and tabletop games. I believe it's in Rochester, New York. And so she's been sending them a bunch of old content. She's been going through a lot of old emails and notes and things like that. So they might end up with a Hall of Fame there for game designers. Maybe there is one that I'm not aware of. But your question, if so, which designer, which game should be the first inductees? Have they identified like the creator of chess or Go? If there's a person behind those games, I think they would be in there. The woman who designed Monopoly, I think, is credited far too little. She isn't on the box that I'm aware of, but or given much credit at all. So I think she should be in there for sure. And then in terms of modern games, Klaus Tuber would have to be in there. Uwe Rosenberg, I think, would have to be in there. The designer of Dungeons and Dragons, I think, would need to be in there. Lots of people. I don't know. A lot of people would need to be in there. I think Donald X. Vaccarino, Richard Garfield would need to be in there. And I'm just thinking of designers, not like in terms of necessarily who I think is the greatest designer right now, but designers who created something that is so foundational to modern hobby games at this point. That's what I was thinking of when I was going through some of those names. Mike says, curious because of your love of Survivor, and I remember you speaking about the Netflix show The Mole, which I watched after hearing about it on the livecast. I actually didn't watch The Mole, but Megan watched through The Mole, and I think she enjoyed it. He says, have you seen the show The Traitors? I have seen The Traitors, yes. He says, I watched it recently and has the same kind of vibes, even with a couple former Survivor cast members. You're totally right. Yeah, I highly recommend anyone who enjoys Survivor. I think The Traitors, while it could use maybe a little tweaks in the format, we really enjoyed it. It's on Peacock here in the U.S. I'm glad you mentioned that, Mike. We really did enjoy that. Currently, Megan and I are watching Survivor week to week, along with some other week to week shows like Ted Lasso and The Mandalorian. And we're also watching Dollhouse, an older show. We are midway through the first season, I believe, of Dollhouse, and I'm really enjoying it. I think it's holding up quite well. It's a really well done show. And as I mentioned, I'm reading the current Brandon Sanderson book. The has wizards in the title, and I'm excited to start reading Fonda Lee's new book, Untethered Sky, which just came out yesterday. Dusty says it would be a shame if we don't get a card in a future Stonemaier game called the Cabinet of Secrets. You're totally right. I should totally have a Cabinet of Secrets in a future game, and the art should literally just be the white cabinet. I like that a lot, Dusty. We should have put that maybe in between two castles, perhaps with some beloved cats napping at the base. I like that. Brian mentions Alexander Pfister. Yeah, Alexander Pfister is one of my favorite designers. Rob Daviau, I think, would need to be in there for creating the legacy genre of games. There are many, many talented designers. But I'm for the Hall of Fame idea, I'm trying to at least start to think about it, if that is the thing, with designers who created a whole genre of games, basically. They created a genre of games that they would have to go in there. Carol's been without a phone for 3 days. What happened to your phone, Carol? I'm sorry to hear that. And she just got her physical copy of the new Tress book from Brandon Sanderson. I read on my Kindle, so I haven't seen the physical copy. But yeah, I'm sure he created a beautiful version of that through his Kickstarter campaign. At Stonemaier Games, I've been working a lot on proofreading recently, both proofreading myself and working with proofreaders to make sure a new game that we have is as good as it can possibly be, and working on some other games that are kind of in the copy editing process right now. Also working with one of the designers for one of those games. And I've been working through, I've been doing some playtesting and also working through the Civ revisions. Some people contributed a lot of time to proofreading the new Civ or the final Civ revisions for Tapestry. And I'm kind of going through them in little bite-sized pieces so I don't get burned out because there are a lot of revisions on there. So I'm going through a few of them a day. And I really appreciate everyone who contributed their time to that effort. Big effort there. What else am I up to? I have also had some time for game design, but this week is particularly busy because it's just been a busy week, so I haven't had a lot of time for game design this week. At the end of this week, I'm having my 20th college reunion. Some old friends are coming into town from my college days, and we are getting together over the next couple of days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, a little bit every day, hanging out with these old friends who are coming back to town. So it'll be neat to see them, and some of us have stayed in touch pretty well. Some of us have not, but it'll be interesting to see them. 20 years since graduating from college. I graduated in 2003 from Washington University here in St. Louis. So it's been a long time. And I'm still in St. Louis. I did fall in love with the town. Mark says, Dollhouse was great. Look for Felicia Day to make an appearance. Oh, that's fun. Chad says, I just played Caper Europe a few times. Such a great game. It was over much faster than I thought it would be. I was surprised how much it reminded me of Sushi Go on steroids. Yeah, I can kind of see that. Sushi Go is a drafting game, and Caper Europe feels like a two-player drafting game, a little bit. I guess I'm trying to remember if there is drafting in it. It felt a little bit more like a tug-of-war game to me than a drafting game, but I think there is drafting to it. It's been just a little while since I played Caper Europe. Oh, Carol said that her screen went black on her iPhone or her phone, not necessarily iPhone. She just found out there was no way to fix and just got a new phone. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, Carol. That's got to be frustrating. What did it feel like to go 3 days without a phone? Did it feel good? Did it feel freeing, or did it provide more anxiety? Brian says, what Cosmere books have you read or recommend before reading the Tress book? He says, I've got mine and preparing to read ASAP. It's a good question, Brian. I think it stands alone. It feels a lot like The Princess Bride. In fact, I think he mentions the Princess Bride in the prologue. There are some references to the greater world, but I don't think there's any required reading before it. My favorite Cosmere books are the Way of Kings books, especially the first two, and the first Mistborn trilogy. But I love pretty much everything Brandon Sanderson has written. And I think I've read pretty much everything in the Cosmere at this point. If you're not familiar with Brandon Sanderson, he's written a number of books in a big world that's comprised of multiple planets, and the stories often have little connections between them, some characters that show up in every book, but they really do stand alone. No book is intended for you to other than like the third book in a series, you have to read the first two books, but no book is intended to require that you have read a completely different series within that universe. And I think Tress is very inviting in that way. It's just a really delightfully told story. One of my favorite books of this year so far. Casimir says, have I played Undaunted Stalingrad? Unfortunately, I haven't played any of the Undaunted games yet, but I want to. I definitely want to. They're on my list for Geekway to play at the upcoming Geekway to the West here in St. Louis. He says, I know you tend not to prefer war or combat-focused games. Two players a little bit different, I would say. I don't want to put a bunch of soldiers on a map typically, but a two-player tug-of-war game, a two-player game of conflict or reducing your opponent's life to zero, I'm fine with that. Like Magic, Hanami Koji. I like those games. But he says this felt very fresh and unique, not as dry as traditional Hex Encounter war games. I've heard great things about it. I definitely want to try the Undaunted series, whether it's Stalingrad or something else. Miles says, speaking of college, was WashU the obvious choice, or were you close to heading somewhere else? So I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I thought maybe I was going to really focus on Japanese when I went to college. And I looked at a lot of liberal arts schools, small liberal arts schools. Like I wasn't going to college for the sports, for example, watching sports or playing sports. I wanted something kind of like what I'd seen in the movies. I envisioned college being this place where you sit around beautiful, lush lawns and trees, and you talked about things, and you had class outside, things like that. College didn't end up being like that at all for me, but that's how I pictured college. And WashU's campus was really beautiful, so I thought that might be the type of thing that happened there. But the main thing for me was when I was looking for colleges, I was looking for their Japanese programs. So I went to a Japanese class at every college that I could go to, that I could visit. And WashU's class, and this is for me, for someone who had studied Japanese for 6 years at that point. I'd been to Japan twice. I thought I knew Japanese pretty well. And I went to the level 1 class at WashU and realized how little I knew, even at the level 1 class at WashU. Whereas at other classes, colleges, I would go to their level 2 or 3 class and I would feel like I really knew what I was talking about. So WashU, I think, had such a better Japanese program than any of these other places that I visited. And it just felt right when I went there. So it became the obvious choice after I visited and after I went to that specific class that I thought I was going to go deep into. And I did end up going pretty deep into Japanese in college, even though I went to the business school for undergraduate. Yeah. That's an interesting question, Miles. I pose that to you or anyone else watching now. Did the college or university that you went to, if you went to university or college, was it the obvious choice? And in hindsight, was it the right choice, or do you wish you had gone someplace else? Yeah. Let me know as I reflect on my 20th anniversary of graduating from college. Chad says, a buddy of his taught him Boss Monster. Fun little game. I noticed that you don't have a favorite mechanism on it yet. Have you played? I have played it. That was before. I played it before I even did favorite mechanism. So I'm glad you mentioned that. There are a few games that I played before I started doing the videos that I never have done videos for. And so I really need to go back and do that. It's been a long time since I played the game, but I can refresh my memory. Also, several of you suggested the game Stellar, and I bought a copy of it. So I'm excited to play Stellar. I think this was last week's chat or the week before. So thank you for that recommendation. It looked really cool. Nice little 2-player game. So I'm looking forward to giving that to the table tomorrow, I think. Chad reminds me about Caper Europe. He says, you are drafting thieves and gears back and forth, and you are building tableaus of cards that trigger from each other. Tug of War is probably the biggest part of it, though. But thank you for the reminder that there is a drafting element to it. I had forgotten about that. My buddy Jake just popped in to say he just finished the first Mistborn trilogy, and he's now listening to The Way of Kings, and he can't put it down. He says, thank you to me and Paul for turning me on to Sanderson, and Miles. Miles loves Sanderson too. He says, I didn't even think that I liked fantasy. I'm so glad you're enjoying it, Jake. There is a second Mistborn trilogy, or maybe 4 books as well, that are also really good. In fact, I think his writing gets better in those books, even though I like the what's the same world, but I like the time period, I think, of the first Mistborn trilogy a little bit more. And the way that he unravels these big mysteries and answers all the questions. I love that he actually clearly answers all the questions and kind of had a plan for them, as far as I could tell, the whole time. But anyway, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you're enjoying The Way of Kings. Sanderson's, we're lucky to have him. He's an incredible writer, in my opinion. Okay, Carol's talking about her 3 days without a phone. She says, 1 day was good. 3 brought me anxiety because I'm worried about what text I missed if people tried to get a hold of me. Yeah. Couldn't get those texts recovered. Oh, that's rough. Honestly, not horrible disconnecting because besides that, and not in case of an emergency. Though we did start Easter by accidentally calling the cops with the emergency button trying to fix the phone. All was good. Well, it's good to know that that button actually works, and hopefully the cops were forgiving about that mistake. Carol says that she almost went to WashU. A very beautiful campus. Yeah, WashU does have, like, it's a very concise campus, but I kind of like that. I like that it's very clear, like, when the campus stops and where other areas start at WashU, and the campus itself is really nice and beautiful. Very old. Like, they went with an Ivy School look, even though it's a much newer university than the Ivy schools on the East Coast. I'm going to read some people's answers here in a second, but let me see. I feel like I had one other question of the day here for you, and I'm forgetting what it was now. We did a team lunch last Thursday. Oh, I did want to mention that I saw the Dungeons and Dragons movie, Honor Among Thieves, and it was awesome. I highly recommend it. If you are a gamer in particular, even if someone who's not into D&D, I've never played D&D. I need to, but I've never played it. The movie was really, really good. It reminded me a lot of the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, in it kind of a perfect mix of humor and action with a strong focus on the characters themselves. And it was just really good. I'm worried that they're not going to make a sequel now because it's doing okay in theaters, but not great. So I highly recommend, if you're curious, go see this movie. It is really, really good. The new Dungeons and Dragons movie that just came out recently. And I know I had some other big question that I wanted to ask you to get your thoughts about. Let me see if I can remember it. Maybe it was just the idea of seasonality. I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Talked about that earlier. I went to a restaurant that has a seasonal menu. Made me want to go back for their summer menu when they had that ready. And I was wondering if I've seen that in video games, but I was wondering if there was a corollary between that and tabletop games that have something seasonal for you to try out or buy. Okay, Ray's talking about his college experience. He says my college was the obvious choice for him. A combination of rigorous academics, a strong community, and a community that matches his faith made it the only choice for him. It was Benedictine College in KA. I probably should know what KA is, but I don't know what KA is. But yeah, Benedictine College. Thank you for sharing that, Ray. Carol went to the University of Illinois. It was not the obvious choice, but definitely the right choice. I wanted to go to WashU, but didn't want to invest that much money into an undecided major. I ended up meeting my husband freshman year at Illinois. It was meant to be. I can definitely relate to that, Carol. In fact, even having gone to WashU, I had financial support to go there, both from my parents and from the university. I had loans as well. It's a very expensive private school, and I am very fortunate for the parts of the education that I received there, particularly the Japanese education that I received there, and the opportunity to go study abroad in Japan. But looking back, I do wonder, and I'm fortunate to be out of college debt. I'm no longer in college debt, but I do wonder a little bit if it was worth the cost. I could have probably gone to a more local university or a smaller university, a state university, and gotten a much better cost, and still gotten a lot of value out of it, or decided to get the value out of it that I wanted. So it isn't a regret for me because everything worked out, fortunately. But in hindsight, Uh, I maybe should have considered the budget a little bit more, just given how expensive it was. I think at that time it was like $40,000 a year plus room and board. I had to work every summer to make that work. I did work study throughout college to make that work. My parents helped, financial aid, loans, like everything came together to make it work out. But that's an incredible amount of money. Um, and I don't know if I got that much out of it. I don't know if I got $40,000 a year worth out of the experience there. But one of the things I found is that I love St. Louis, and so I'm glad that I ended up coming to St. Louis and experiencing it and deciding that it was going to be the place that I wanted to live for half my life now. So that part worked out. Valhalla Board Game Cafe popped up to say, we are working on our first board game, and I'm wondering what your opinion is on getting art done first or working on the meat and potatoes of the game first. So there are different methods to do this. I think that the general like best practice is not to make any art until the game is really good, until the game is in a really good place. And I think that's generally what I agree with as well. However, I will say that if you're building a world around the game, if the game is built in a new world, I think it can help to reach out to a potential artist and get some concept art, because having that visual, I think, can actually help you craft that world and can help you craft the mechanisms that fit well inside that world, especially if you find the right artist who is interested in building that world with you. So I think that's something to consider, but I wouldn't go too deep into the art because you might find out that the game just doesn't work out. You go too deep into the art and then you're like, oh, I don't actually have a game here. We have done that at Stonemaier Games. We have a game that we have art for, but the game itself didn't work out. And that's a big investment. Eventually, I think we are still going to use that art, but it'll be it's been a couple of years now that we have this art just sitting around with no function for it. So uh, at most, I would get a few pieces of concept art and not go much beyond that. Miles says for undergrad, his choice was obvious. He never really considered going anywhere other than the University of Washington. This is different than Washington University. This is the one in not Seattle, but in the state of Washington. Miles says his grad school choices were much more difficult and present some interesting fork in the road moments. I'm happy where I'm at, so I think I made the right choices. That's a nice way to think about it, more, Miles. And I'm curious. I'll talk with you more about that maybe when we're playing disc golf sometime. I'd love to see what you think about this, what some of those fork in the roads could have led you to. Dusty says, I don't think I saw you back Shem's Legacy of You solo campaign. You're correct. I didn't back it. I'm always curious about what Shem is making, but I don't play games solo really. Dusty said, I got my copy and found the insert to be a really nice from an organizational perspective. It might be worth you checking out, if only to see that clear insert with sorting instructions printed on the box below with the clear insert. Oh, that's really clever. Okay, so he printed instructions on the box where it's easy to print things, but he used a clear insert so you can see through it to see the instructions for where to place things. That's so clever. Shem is so clever. I can send you video or pics if you don't have access to a copy. I'd love a photo of that, Dusty. Yeah, absolutely. I get the concept here, but if you are willing to send me a photo of what it looks like, I'd be very curious to see that. I know you're trying to get away from plastic when you can, but in the event that you need to use it, this is a great use for it. I am trying to use less plastic, but at the same time, I want our games to provide the best experience for people, and sometimes that means nice organization for things that you can easily pull out of the box and just put on the table and start playing. We have that in expeditions. We have a big insert, a big plastic insert. We have a tray that you can pull out and put on the table. That makes things much faster for setup. So I think it just depends on the game. Yeah, so I'm certainly open to. I just want to create the best experience while keeping eco-friendliness in mind. Yeah. Chad says that he went to an art and design college. After a few semesters, I got his first design, or he got his first design job. He quit college soon after. He says college was so expensive, yeah, and I learned so much more from 1 week on the job that I did at college. Been working in the design field ever since. And Chad, I can't say that I disagree with you. I mean, I have learned so much more in my life through actually working. Like when I worked, and college actually inspired me to do part of this. To pay for my room and board, I had to get a summer job, and my summer job was working as a server. At least two of my summer jobs was working as a server at restaurants, and I learned so much more about customer service by actually working at a restaurant as a server than I could have possibly learned in a customer service class at college. And I think I maybe could have complemented that, go to the restaurant, work at the restaurant, learn about customer service, and complement that with online education. I think there's a lot of great online videos about customer service and books about customer service. Pairing those two things together, I could easily get so much more than I could have gotten from a college class about customer service. I know some college classes encourage you to get that real life experience, but that's the key part of it, in my opinion. I do think there are some. Yeah, I actually don't know. Like even with the people that I've hired at some of our games, I've never looked at their college experience. Like that has absolutely no impact at all on my hiring decision. Maybe some companies still care about that, but it has no impact on anyone that I've ever hired. Dusty says that his son and him went and his D&D group. No, his son and his D&D group went to see D&D Honor Among Thieves. They were expecting full camp, and they said it's so much better than it has any right to be. And that was my reaction too. Like the trailer does not do it justice. I thought the trailer was fine, but it came across as a little more campy than the video actually than the movie actually is. The movie is genuine. Like it is showing a genuine love for the characters, for the world. Like I want to know so much more about the world now. All I know, the only access I have to the D&D world is Tyrants of the Underdark and Lords of Waterdeep. I want to know so much more now. It looks so good. The world looks so good in the movie. And it's a heist movie. I love heist movies. Oh yeah, I need to totally add that to my heist movie list. Thank you, Dusty, for reminding me. I have an ongoing heist fiction list and a heist movie list on my JameyStegmeyer.com blog that I need to add that to it. I hope you get the chance to see it, Dusty. Let's see. Corey says that Marshall University was the obvious choice for him. He moved back to his hometown area when he finished up his contract with the Marines, and it's 15 minutes from him. Knocked out his RBA in Religious Studies and Psychology in 3 years. That's awesome. Getting ahead of it. 3 years instead of 4. Ray says, oh, Kansas is the right abbreviation for Kansas, not KA. Okay. He was talking about Benedictine College in Kansas. I was wondering what KA was. Chad says he appreciated my recent interview video. I too am designing games, so to watch an interview from someone in his shoes was really interesting. Yeah, that's kind of what we were going through with Sam. Sam is going through the process for the first time right now, so a lot of his questions are stemming from that first time experience. So it was fun to have Sam on this video. Sam is not someone that people know. He's not a known designer. I think it was fun to do some videos like that, but to walk through those early footsteps with someone who is going through it for the first time was an interesting approach, I think, for that video. I'm glad Sam reached out to me. Carol says, your college decision brought you to where you are today, and you seem really happy, worth it, and right for you. Yeah, I think that's well said, Carol. Yeah, I don't want to knock maybe a little bit, I want to knock the college. I didn't get the education I expected from college. I didn't even get the experience I expected from college. But I'm glad I went to college. I'm glad I went to WashU. I'm glad I had those friendships, those experiences, especially the year abroad. And I'm glad they led me to where I am today. I think inevitably they have led to me being in St. Louis, me being with Megan, and perhaps me running the game company. I don't know if there was any direct connection there between me and college, but I'm glad I at least came to St. Louis for college. That was definitely a big fork in the path of my life. Carol says, have you looked into the Nova Roma Kickstarter? Designer of Endless Winter through his own company looks like another interesting action programming turn system. You know, I did not know that was from Johnny Pax. I need to check that out. Thank you for that recommendation. No, I haven't seen it. Oh, here we go. Dusty is sharing a link to the Legacy of You insert. Oh, that's so clever. That is really clever. I got to save that. I want to use that sometime, Dusty. That's really clever. I do have to go in a moment. Let me see here if I can see a few more comments. Gavin says he originally went to culinary school and worked as a chef for about 7 years. After which he went back to college, trained in computer technology. Probably would for intro computers earlier, given the chance to do it all again, but no regrets. Working in kitchens is an education in itself. Yeah. And Carol says his journalism teachers used to tell us to ditch classes if it meant that you were going to cover a story that would go into your portfolio. Our hands-on experience on the school paper were going to be more beneficial than getting jobs than classes. That's interesting. I'm glad those were smart professors, I think, to tell you that. Oh, Carol says that Endless Winter is by Stan Kordonsky. Pax is the developer. I see. Johnny Pax is the developer, not the designer. Thank you for clarifying that, Carol. Credit where credit is due. I like that. Again, I'll end here that I have a ton of components from various games, Between Two Cities, Wingspan, uh, uh, Viticulture, Euphoria, Scythe. So games that we've already published, I have a ton of components that if you could use them for your classroom, for your kids, for prototyping, I'm happy to send them to you for free. So let me know if you're interested in general or if you're interested in a specific game. I have realistic resources too. Send me an email at jamey@stillmeyergames.com. And ideally, in this case, you would be in the US. I think these are going to be very expensive to ship internationally. So if you're in the US, email me in this case, because they're literally in my room right here with me. They're not at our international fulfillment centers. And I'm happy to send them to you. Or at least consider it. If I get too many emails, I'll probably have to select some people and not others. I see some emails already from people referencing my cabinet of secrets. You can use that in your subject line, cabinet of secrets, and let me know if you're interested in anything in particular. I'm going to take off so I can go teach or reteach expeditions to my team so they know it for Gamma. Thank you for joining me today and have a great week. I'll see you next Wednesday. Take care. Bye.